FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Joining me right now, you all remember our friend Ken Wahl, wise guy Ken Wahl. He's been in, just look at him up on IMDb. Ken, good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining me.
Good afternoon.
You have been going on a rant recently, and I wanted to ask you about it. You've been hitting several different topics. I mean,
I beg your pardon. I don't describe it as a rant.
It's injection of truth into the conversation. Let's put it
At
like
least
that.
balance, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. That as well.
Because you got to realize what I'm dealing with. It's 95% to 5 about.
Gosh, how is it? What keeps you out there? Just the weather?
Pretty much, yeah. Just the climate. Pretty much.
Yeah, I'd say you could come here, but it's like 20 degrees, and you probably
Yeah,
won't.
I know. Well, my lovely hometown of Chicago, if I didn't get murdered there, I'd freeze to death. So.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, your town is in the, speaking of Chicago, your
Oh, I
hometown's
know,
in the news again.
Chicago's got a real spotlight on it now.
Well, and then they just they told police that people who call in for burglaries or what they classify as simple assaults, because Chicago's having a budget problem, which is shocking considering their super high taxes.
Well, actually, it's not that shocking because all the people that have any money moved out.
True. Very
so
true.
Their tax base is completely destroyed.
And they can't, and they have to cut their response for 911. So they won't let people carry in Chicago. They tell them guns are bad. Those aren't Chicago values. But at the same time, they say, well, if you call 911 because you've been assaulted, sorry, but we can't come help you.
And furthermore, one of the reasons I hear is that, okay, well, you can't get guns in Chicago, but you can go outside Chicago and get the guns and bring them into the city.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that nobody has said this. And that is, so you mean to tell me that they're going out of the city to get guns where the crime rate is lower, even though the guns are less regulated, and bringing them in to the city to commit crimes? Well, what does that tell you?
Right.
It tells you it's not the fault of the guns, it's the fault of the people that want them and what they want to do with them.
Exactly. And
I don't see how that simple logic just does not resonate.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that you mentioned that, because that's what all of these gun grabbers are trying to use as justification for going after other states. Yeah, I mean it's insipid logic, because you can't as long as you have a federal firearms licensee on one of the ends of the transaction, then it's legal and you have to be able to carry in your own state. So of course they're going to break that law as well by going across state lines.
Right.
Because, criminals don't follow laws. I know that's shocking to many people.
Yeah,
Ken.
right? I know.
It's
Imagine
shocking.
that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you made a really interesting point that I kind of want to explore. And this is something that I've noticed liberals, progressives, however you want to classify them, using to try to beat people who believe in the Second Amendment. They're trying to use this to beat them over the head. You had said liberals think that you don't value Sandy Hook kids because you're pro-Constitution. Right. And you said, I value all kids. I'm pro-life and value lives lost fighting for the Constitution. Why is it that the left thinks that you can't be one and the other?
I think because they just see the surface. I think that they are highly emotionally driven. And what I mean by that is that when you see Newtown and you think, oh my God, all these poor little kids, that it becomes such an emotionally charged issue that it's very difficult to be objective about it from their point of view. And I even understand that. I've really done some soul searching on this, and I think, well, what if this was my kids? Because if you remember back a few years ago when the Virginia Tech thing happened, the outrage against guns then was not nearly as intense as it is now, because those were college kids. And, of course, it's still a tragedy. But the younger the kids are, the more heinous the crime, because they're more innocent and more defenseless. When you're talking about 5-year-old kindergartners, 6-year-old first graders, it's just heart-wrenching. And I think that is all they're seeing. They're just seeing what is on the surface. Now, the problem was not that particular gun or any kind of gun, and who cares about the nomenclature, what we call the gun. The point is that that person should not have had a gun, not the gun itself. The gun is an inanimate object, can't hurt anybody.
Right. And it's always blamed. It's always the left is projecting what this individual has used his free will to choose to do onto an inanimate object. And that's the Virginia Tech, everyone's talking about AR-15s and rifles. Those were handguns.
Yeah, I know. But
Virginia Tech.
That's not even the point, though. I mean, the point is, on their side, it's how many got killed and how they got killed.
Right.
So regardless of the weapon used, if the guy was a bad shot or the kids were able to run away, it's all commensurate with the number of dead,
Right.
unfortunately. But they still are just seeing the surface side, because you've got to face the fact that with freedom comes a certain amount of risk. Because let's say if I had a complete change of heart and I became president and I said, you know what, America, I'm going to make you the safest Americans in history. You know what? Not only are we going to get rid of guns, we're going to get rid of knives, too. Because knives are dangerous. I can spout statistics about how many people have been stabbed to death over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And you know what? Most crime happens between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. So you know what? A curfew, 9 a.m., you got to be indoors. Oh, it's just to make you safe. And this is the part they don't get. Once you start taking freedoms away, where does it end? And yes, of course, we want to deal with these tragedies, but deal with the tragedy. What is the real tragedy? The tragedy is not the inanimate object. The tragedy was this poor, sick guy that used the gun.
Right.
And criminals will always find a way to get guns, no matter how much you try to regulate them away. And Chicago has proven that.
Exactly. And there are some individuals, and you made a great point, there's always risk in freedom. That's freedom. That's freedom. That's always risk.
That's right.
And there are, it seems to me, some individuals who simply cannot bear the burden of such a responsibility with liberty.
Apparently not.
And they want all of us to be punished for that as well. You mentioned the difference in media attention between the college kids in Virginia Tech and the elementary kids in Sandy Hook. Something else I noticed as well. There were two incidents in Texas, one in Houston, one at a high school, one at a community college, and they ended up both being gang related. You only heard about them one time. And then as soon as it was like they were classified as gang-related, nothing. In your hometown of Chicago, a girl who sang at the inauguration shot that weekend after, gang-related. And you don't hear, what about those kids? You don't hear anything in the media from it. And it kind of makes me wonder, and I don't like to pull this card out, but is our mainstream media being racist?
Well, I don't mind pulling that card out at all. The mainstream media is absolutely corrupt, in my opinion. The things that they report, and moreover, the things that they do not report, is absolutely criminal. And there's just no pushback on the administration at all, because they all have the same agenda. And it would be bad enough if it was only annoying, but I believe that it's downright dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I can't believe, the trigger for me to start talking, I may have said this the last time I talked to you, was when Pelosi said, let's sign this bill and then we'll read it, when it was about Obamacare.
Right.
And I was absolutely nonplussed when I heard that. I could not believe it. But not just that she said it and with a straight face and she was serious, but that the media did not push back on her at all. The American press is the fourth estate. They are supposed to protect the American people in the regard of that they are supposed to take the administration to task. And they have completely gone against their responsibilities in doing that with this president. A couple months ago when Obama had a press conference and there was a woman in the front row, and Obama made the comment that, oh, she's been with me. I've known her since I was running for state senator. And she got all giggly like she was looking at Justin Bieber or something.
Right.
And she said, yes, we go back such a long time, and I've never seen you lose except that one time, and I wasn't looking. I couldn't believe it. And if she's with the press,
yeah,
they're all in his pocket, and it's not just shameful; it is downright dangerous.
And this is why citizen journalism, I think, is so unbelievably important, because you're right. That is what I think is the biggest threat to American liberty right now is the propagandists, the media. It's not even media anymore, and it's very rare to even find a reporter who can choke back his opinion long enough to get through one particular segment.
Yes, objectivity is completely gone.
And I don't mind editorialists so long as they say, "Hey, look, we're editorialists." But you watch people like Brian Williams, and I think that's another reason why the left, like left talk radio, fails, and lefty programming on cable news has such low ratings, because people see this every day on NBC and CBS and the rest.
Yes, and that's the other thing too, is that they will all cry foul about Fox News, And I said, when I get in conversation with people about this, I said, what are you complaining about Fox News? That's one outlet. I said, you got CBS, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CNN. I said, you're totally loaded on the left, and yet you still complain about one dissenting voice on the right. That right there makes me against them just for that.
Yeah, and that's what's truly scary. My friend Ken Wahl, we love it when you come on. You have an open invitation anytime you want.
Great, thank you.
We love it. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right,
Thanks.
take care.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.